Welcome back to the campus of San Jose State University and this edition of Equal Time. Our focus is social media, and we have some special guests.
I'm Roberto Araujo. I'm a social media consultant and a PR professional at LMGPR.
Hi, I'm Faith Cheehill. I'm a content and community coordinator at Beyond, a digital agency.
I'm Ted Koopman, and I'm a lecturer in the Communication Studies program at San Jose State University.
I'm Dean Eccles. I'm a doctoral candidate in communication and statistics at Stanford University.
I thank all of you for being here today. Let's get into it. You know, all universities, all businesses now are talking about social media, how to use it, incorporate it in education, incorporate it in business. But the phenomenon seems to be out of control. How do we understand it? How are we using it? Roberto.
There are methods of analytics and information that you can get from any different source online, or you can actually pay for them. You can get free tools online like Google Analytics, or you can actually subscribe to Radian 6, for instance, that you can use to analyze and find the return on investment for social media.
And we want to do research to find out its impact in academia, correct? It belongs in academia in some way, but how?
Well, it belongs in academia because everything belongs in academia. It reflects the world that we live in, and as especially in educators in the classroom, it's important that we leverage technology to help fulfill our mission, because some things technology does very well, other things it doesn't do as well. And so we just need to, and what we're doing right now is to figure out the affordances of technology versus face-to-face interaction, and then rebalance based on that.
All right, but we heard in our earlier report that some people believe they can multitask and learn at the same time. Now, there are academics, there are faculty in my department in journalism that would say, we don't believe that. What are your thoughts?
I would believe that it really depends on how you're influencing your students and how you're talking to your students, whether if you're allowing them to be on Twitter or to participate in a tweet chat during a lecture. Is that encouraged? Are you letting them participate in the classroom? Are you asking them questions while they're doing this? Do you have a copy of all of their Twitter handles so you actually know what they're talking about? I believe that multitasking and learning is definitely achievable. I mean, how else can you expect us to write down notes while you're talking? I mean.
Now, Dean, you're studying this at Stanford. Is that really something that we can believe that you can learn while you're multitasking online?
Well, I think there's still a lot of uncertainty about exactly how multitasking works. I mean, in the recent multitasking workshop at Stanford that brought together people who are studying this across a lot of disciplines, there was cases where experience with high technology like video gaming was able to sharpen people's ability to multitask and to complete tasks quickly. On the other hand, a lot of work done by Clifford Nass, who we saw in the video, really suggested the exact opposite. But part of the question is even just what is multitasking? If I'm doing two tasks that are intimately related, like tweeting while I'm in class about the content of the class, is that really multitasking in the same way as somebody who's surfing Facebook or surfing the internet in an unrelated manner? I think it's important to distinguish those two kinds of multitasking.
And there's actually a recent study that I've learned from a school in Iowa. There are 11th grade students that actually the teacher decided to put in place some type of new media. They call it a back channel. They use that in order for students, those shy students, to actually communicate, because there's some students that are not outspoken. So what they do, they have all the students their laptops while the class is being, the lectures being going over, and they have also students interacting online with about the same topic. And what this does is makes those shy students actually speak up through social networks rather than speaking out in public.
Now, some people might have concerns about that. Our staff had this incredible discussion about this right before we went on the air with this, and we were talking about 5th graders, 6th graders, talking to teachers about being on Facebook and interacting and all that. Is that the appropriate thing for young people at that age to be on Facebook?
Well, appropriate is a value judgment, and I mean, theoretically, you're not supposed to be on Facebook when you're that age, but still, I think something like 70% of 7th graders have social media accounts. I think the problem right now is that we don't know how it works, and we haven't figured out how to live our lives in an online environment. And over time, things should shake out in terms of our ability to go ahead and deal with this. It's just for us, we're kind of caught in the middle where all the rules have changed, especially in the classroom. Everything has kind of changed, and now we have to decide whether we're going to put up a wall and say no, or if we can go ahead and how can we use it to benefit everybody and to be realistic about how much control we really have.
But you make a good point, two very good points. Is it too young for that age group? And also, how do we know what they're learning while they're on at that young age? Our staff, again, was talking about how they feel pressure already when they go on Facebook as college students to measure up to what they read from other people, to be doing what they're supposed to be doing, or feeling guilty or depressed if they're not doing it. What about that?
I would think that, I mean, I want to kind of take back to what you first started out with, the idea that, you know, social media is going out of control. And I think that there's certainly so for certain people. I mean, I think that we all know certain people in our lives, even without the use of Facebook and Twitter, will just gab about anything and whatever about their day. However, I think that as younger students and, you know, children in general are learning to navigate the digital atmosphere, I think they're actually learning good skills about what is important to share in your daily lives. I think that as students and people are growing up with social media, we'll find that, you know, babies have Facebook accounts because the parents have created them for them. And so people have digital footprints even before that they've come out of the womb, and that really affects how they're going to be perceived in the future.
And you do realize you
Yeah.
probably frightened a few viewers
Oh,
just
yeah.
by saying that, you know?
But the idea is that, you know, students and people in general start to learn more about accountability, about what is private and what can be kept private, and how you can use online media effectively instead of just sharing everything as you started learning from a younger age.
And Dean, as you continue to study this in college, what about college students who are telling you, as they're telling us, that there's some pressure on them when they use Facebook and they interact? I heard the story recently that someone was looking at some pictures or something about a party that somebody was invited to, and the reaction of the student was, well, I wasn't invited to that party. Are those the sort of things that we're getting from Facebook and other sources?
I think social media can prompt these feelings of being left out, and it's actually worth contrasting with some of the moral panic we had about television some time ago, right? So with television, people were all talking about the mean world syndrome or the scary world syndrome, the idea that by tuning into the television, you were starting to think that the world was a much more violent and frightening place than it really was. I think social media can do the opposite, kind of create a friendly world syndrome where it seems like everybody's having a good time, everybody is more popular than me, and everybody agrees with my point of view. So I think social media can provide this kind of biased picture onto what's going on in the world, which for some people could lead to feelings of missing out. For others could lead to false polarization, feeling like everybody's either with me or against me in some kind of political view. So it is worth thinking about what kind of lens on the world does social media provide, especially as contrasted with the mass media that we were previously familiar with.
And as much as these companies can place limitations, controls, and do registration and all that, this is a free society for free communication. So there's some things that we're just not going to be able to stop. Are there concerns about that?
Well, I mean, to go back to what was being said before, I think that definitely social media can be intensely coercive in terms of the pressure to go ahead and to be on Facebook or to, you know, text people or to tweet or to do whatever. But something that Crispin Thurlow at the University of Washington discussed was the idea of the communication imperative, right? In that people will bend communication technology to meet their own needs and desires. And in all of this, we really need to pull back and look and say, okay, what are the things that have been going on in face-to-face, you know, the physical world that we've completely glossed over? Like there's no peer pressure, you know, in the physical world, that dating isn't this like, you know, incredibly stressful, weird activity in the physical world, but it's like, oh, online dating is really weird, or going online is really kind of strange. It really necessarily can't be that much different than what we're doing in physical space. I found that what happens is that basically the internet has a multiplier effect, and new media basically has a multiplier effect over what is already going on in our day-to-day lives, whether it's students or in the workplace or at home.
But does it distract in the workplace? Roberto, you've been in our classes. You know that we clamp down on that in journalism. We say we want you to use it, but use it appropriately. And sometimes during instruction, not appropriate. What about in the workplace?
Well, I say this. When anything you do in life, you have to limit yourself a limited amount of time to do things. I mean, you can surf online for an hour or 2 hours of your day, and then spend the rest doing your real work. You know, I mean, you can use that to, social media to enhance your work, to look for more information, get feedback from other people. You know, and make conversation, ask questions, and you can actually reach out is broader than just limiting yourself to the physical world.
And Faith, I worry about the interpersonal reactions. Maybe I'm old-fashioned. I do have enough gray hair to qualify to be a person in that age group. But I worry about the ability of students to talk to each other. It's great that you can use social media to interact, to date, to go out, make plans. But whatever happened to one-on-one conversation? Well, isn't that important?
I think that, you know, that's also kind of leaving out the factor that a lot of people use social media in order to meet other people. When you look at successful companies like Meetup, where people, you know, they join a community that they are not necessarily a part of previously, and to meet other people and to talk with them at a constant basis. I think to go on Roberto's part about, you know, using Twitter in the workplace, we definitely at my agency, we encourage it as long as it's appropriate, of course, and, you know, in the appropriate language. But in order to like communicate with other colleagues, to share findings, to share people with other, you know, things that we have found in the industry, I think it's really important to build those social skills through social media. Even if it isn't face-to-face, that doesn't mean that it does not open the door to meeting later in the future.
And there's no question that administrators, faculty, we use BlackBerries and we use iPhones and we interact with Skype and all of that. But I still wonder, for young people who are still learning how to interact with human beings, trying to get into the business world, trying to get into the academic world, are they hiding too much behind that technology?
Well, I think one of the big challenges of social interaction through technology is so many of the cues that we normally rely on, the signals from other people and from situations that tell us what's appropriate to do, what are the norms in this space, are absent online. And then furthermore, a lot of those situations, norms, communities can be collapsed because it's all available to other people, or it may change in the future who is observing, who's the audience of what you're producing. And so a lot of the basic signals that we rely upon to have fruitful social interaction in the physical world are lacking online. And so the thing is, we're stuck with that. Because of globalization, a lot of us are going to be working in a way with people who are somewhere else. And so we need to figure out how to make that work for us.
Now, if we're stuck with it, which I believe we are, then we have to incorporate it. That's why the School of Journalism here is incorporating social media across this academic mission, because we see the value of using it as a teaching tool. We're using Facebook for this program to interact with our community. Here's my concern. What about false information coming out from sources that may or may not have the credibility we'd like? For years, we've had Rate Your Professor. We've had people talking about teachers on Facebook and on Twitter. And I sometimes hear, maybe you can help me with this, Ted, I sometimes hear students telling me, your class was nothing like what I saw online, they said, before I came in. Are you worried about that? Are you concerned about that?
I wouldn't say I'm concerned about it. It's really, you know, students have their own peer networks, and they talk to each other about the classes and how they want to operate in the class. And this is a whole thing about, there's a lot of talk, and there was some early research that said, like, you know, oh, there's a problem with people being online and it's affecting their face-to-face interaction. And I just don't think the research supports that at all. People who have obsessive compulsive behaviors will have them online even more, as well as in physical face-to-face. People primarily use new media to manage their physical friend network and their family, if they have people in other cities, if they were raised maybe in the Central Valley and now they're going to school here, and that's the way they maintain their relationships. As far as the interruption issue, I saw some research that showed that the average time that anyone in an office can go without being interrupted is about 3 minutes. So this is not a new media phenomenon. Again, it is something that can increase the effect, but it's not something we haven't dealt with in the past.
And we put depression in our previous reporting on this as a Facebook possible phenomenon. Do young people get depressed when they see so much messaging bombarding them about what they are, what they should be doing, who they should be associating with?
Oh yeah, certainly. There is depression, and I'm sure there is depression in physical work as well. I mean, if anything, I think social media enhances this generational, these people who actually be depressed. Usually a lot of times it's because of social problems they may have. Some of them could be, shy or having, social issues. And, social media, what gives them is a new way to communicate, a new way to reach out to people, even people who are like them. Maybe they're different, they're the odd person in where they stand, but they can reach out somebody out there in China and talk to them, and somebody just like them, and then that will prevent their suicide or their depression.
Equal Time has done a focus on bullying, cyberbullying, and that's one of the concerns. The more students and individuals get involved very quickly, do you think that could be a concern in the future?
I'm sure that cyberbullying is, it's a very real issue and it happens, and as well as regular bullying in the real life, it happens. But at the same time, you see initiatives where people combat that in a positive way. When you look at campaigns like It Gets Better, when people were using social media in order to encourage young gay people to be proud of themselves and to know that, the life that they're living isn't going to be the only life that they're living. And I think that, when you look at anything in a way that, there's only one side of it, it's a little silly.
It's a little closed-minded, and we have to remain open-minded. You've been wonderful. Thank you for being here today. Facebook, we're there. How about you join us there sometime? And of course, join us again for another edition of Equal Time.